Okay, this unit of the course is called Digitizing and Sourcing Images and Text. And as I say in this week's note, which we'll look at in a minute or so, if you're doing a digital project on the web, you're going to need digital materials. And you can either find materials that have already been digitized, or you're going to have to digitize materials that aren't yet in a digital format. Rosenzweig's textbook this week, chapter 3, which is on, I think it's becoming digital, goes through some different comments on digitizing text, digitizing images, and then sound and video. It's a pretty good overview of the processes involved in making materials digital. And so that's a good starting place. And then this week's note, I also talk a little bit about what you need to be a digital historian. And so basically, it breaks down into two things. You need hardware and you need software. And one of the really kind of interesting things over the last decade is how powerful software has become. And so while maybe back in the early 1990s, mid 1990s, the whole digital equation was really based on hardware. In the last 5 years or so, what software can do has become so incredibly powerful. I use that word again. Um, that really the kind of the weight and the cost of digitizing things has really shifted to the software and everything. And so basically, to digitize materials, you need some sort of scanner, and you probably need a camera. That's for text or images. Um, and then in addition to the hardware, you're going to need software. You're going to need software to work with text. You're going to need software to work with images. You're going to need software to work with audio. You're going to need software to work with video. So you see, as I've said software 4 times, you see how important that is and everything. And so you're going to kind of over time, you're going to evolve your own computer setup that allows you to work with materials. Um, I've got a photo here of kind of my setup, and you'll see here I have a scanner, I have a digital slide, a slide digitizer. I can put in 35 millimeter slides and digitize them because I use a lot of slides over time. I've got my PC, I've got my Mac workbook down here, got a digital camera. I also have an audio setup so that I can digitize audio. And most of the video that I digitize, I use my PC and everything. And so like you're going to kind of come up with your own kind of combination of hardware, software. For software, I use most of the Adobe products. There are a high learning curve on them and everything. But once you get used to them, you don't have to use all the features, but once you get used to using them, you'll find what you routinely use of the software features and make it work for you and everything. Now, in regards to software, there's a lot of different places where you can get training and resources, tutorials that show you how to use the software and how to do specific things with the software. I've listed just a couple here. The lynda.com is a pretty popular one. I've used Noble Desktop for some things. The hanacademy.org, they got probably hundreds, maybe a couple thousand different videos and all kinds of subject matter and everything, but there's a lot of software tutorials in there too. And then there's also tutorials at Atomic Learning, and that's free to all students at NVCC. Now, the other thing on this week's unit is the St. Petersburg map assignment, and this is to give you just some idea of the difficulties of actually digitizing some materials. And so, like I explained here, the St. Petersburg map is actually a pretty large map. I don't know, I estimated the approximate dimensions at 24 by 30. And so what I had to do to make it into some sort of digital form that I could put on the web, I have to scan each sections of the map and then use what's called a stitching feature to stitch those sections together to make it into a map that can be viewed and manipulated on the web and everything. And then there's also this feature here called Zoomify, and that's the magnification feature that goes with the map and everything. So, you know, here I'm taking a physical resource, a large map, digitizing it, putting it into digital form so that students can work with it and everything. And so that's your assignment for the week, is to look at the map and consider what's involved in making the map digital. And then there's some questions that you're supposed to answer here, or you're supposed to post to your blog about working with the map and everything. Now, the last thing I just want to mention this week, since it's Unit 10, is right there at the bottom. Have fun with your project. You're going to start working on your project soon and everything, and this is something that you've particularly chosen to work with and everything. So it should be something that you're going to enjoy, and you're going to be creative with, and you're going to have fun with, and that you're going to work hour after hour after hour. You're going to get frustrated with it, but you're going to keep pouring in those hours because it's something that's going to be fun and you're interested in doing and everything. And so if you're not having fun with the project, that's usually a pretty good indication that now maybe you should have picked a different kind of project to work on, and you can still change that whenever you want. Okay, thanks.